when I think about customer centricity, for me, it's how we design our business so that all of the touch points that customers have with us, whether they're trying to find materials, trying to choose materials, ultimately buying materials and then using them, that all of those touch points are designed explicitly with the customer's intent in mind.
For me, firstly, customer centricity is extremely critical. It's extremely important. I like to think of it as the ability to walk in the customer's shoes and truly know and truly understand what keeps the customer awake at night. Different members of the customer organizations, whether it's a CEO or the R&D, head of R&D or the head of supply chain, etc. What really matters and what matters to them, what keeps them awake at night. And our ability as a partner to that customer to be able to design our processes, designs our solutions, and in fact, even our people interaction to help solve for those issues and to help solve for some of the marketplace issues that we can jointly deliver against.
It really starts with understanding what are the outcomes important to customers. What are the things that they value and what are they trying to achieve? Understanding that, and then aiming our canon of people, process, and technology at helping customers achieve those outcomes. Nothing more, nothing less. One of the hardest things for us to do is recognize that the business, the company, is not actually our customer. Companies don't buy anything. Companies don't make decisions. People do. So thinking about, the different constituents in the supply chain, who are the individuals at those companies that have a specific job to do, or outcome that they need to deliver? And it's understanding what is the job that they have to do, the outcome that they need to deliver, and what they value as individuals, which will obviously reflect certain benefits that they need to deliver for their company. But it's all about understanding who those individuals are, what they care about, and how to make them successful.
So I have a pretty pragmatic view about this. I think technology is here to stay and should be here to stay. And for me, technology does a couple of things. What technology is able to do and should do is to strip away the pain points. Let's not spend human time in undertaking those tasks which technology is just better able to deliver. The second bit, of course, technology enables, and with the whole advent of data and how we manage data and artificial intelligence, is the ability to get to decisions or outcomes, especially in the chemical industry, to outcomes which are faster, better, more predictive, and more right first time, rather than the huge amounts of time that we would undertake in past times on, say, experimentation and getting to an outcome.
We're conditioned in our private lives by digital for the immediacy of an answer, right? You don't want to have to wait to talk to somebody, wait for somebody to call you back to get an answer. So there's a whole host of things, I think, as consumers, and this rolls over into our business lives as well, where we want that same immediacy, right? We want to be able to self-serve on the obvious, repetitive things. So if I want to find a product, I want to be able to self-serve on that. If I want to download a data sheet, I don't want to have to call somebody to do that. I want to be able to self-serve. That's the role that digital can play, is really in helping our customers self-serve. At the same time, you have to acknowledge that digital can get in the way of customer experience as well if it's done badly. The critical thing is thinking about those on and off ramps between the things that customers want to do themselves digitally and then when they need to speak to somebody, right? So those on and off ramps have to be really intuitive and natural so you can flow easily between them, so that digital really becomes an enhancement to the relationship that the customer has with you as a supplier, and not a hindrance to it.
Technology was always how we were able to scale processes in the business, ensuring that everyone did everything the same way, because that's how scale is accomplished. Or at least that's what we've sort of learned along the last 30 or 40 years. Couple differences is that today technology actually enables people to do things the way they want to do them at scale. And so going back to earlier, when we talked about how customer centricity is understanding the outcome the customer wants to achieve and using technology as well as people and process to help them achieve that outcome, is how it can be used customer-centrically.
One of the big challenges is that, an investment in customer centricity, let's say to an intentional goal to improve customer experience around a service that we're providing, that an investment in those type of services is quite hard to draw out an exact MPV on, right? So it's one part of the experience that the customer gets. It's one of the touch points that the customer might have with us. And so it's very hard to delineate, okay, if I spend this to improve this service, then I will receive this in terms of an improved customer experience. And that will lead to, positive outcomes financially in terms of growth or profitability. And so it makes it difficult to compete for investment dollars, I think, between, here's I should be making an investment in a service that the customer really appreciates. And, for example, the traditional view that we'd have of an investment in a new plant facility to supply product.
First and foremost, the biggest shift is cultural shifts. And especially for industries and companies which have been used to having a product or even a technology centric mindset, that's really difficult because, in the good old days, if you had let's take the pharmaceutical industry, if you had a blockbuster molecule or drug, or in the chemical industry, if you have a wonderful new property which comes in, wow, you get there. But, these days, speed to market, entry barriers are not that high. There are huge, low-cost, fast followers. So inevitably, you've got to just engineer everybody and anybody in the company to say, there is something more towards becoming a commercial powerhouse than just the product. Lies within it, customer centricity, but it is about culture, it's about belief and mindsets.
At its heart, if you want to be repeatably providing intentional, positive customer experiences, you have to have great process and system. So thinking about each of those touch points in turn and saying, okay, if our design intent is this, that this is the experience the customer's trying to get for the job they're trying to get done at that moment, then how do we make sure that that can happen repeatably, whether it's happening here in Middle Michigan or it's in Shanghai or it's in Berlin? It doesn't matter where the interaction's occurring with us, whether the interaction is digital or it's human to human, that we can have a foundation which is built on a systematic approach to thinking about that experience and how we deliver that experience, and clarity and training around the processes and the intent around those experiences.
I think the sort of the loosey-goosey term, customer centricity, this very emotional term, has behind it, like many aspects have behind them. You can talk about safety, you can talk about branding, you can talk about marketing, has the real hard reality of hard processes, systematic processes, KPIs, measurable stuff that everybody can very simply and pragmatically follow to take the journey forward. It's up to us in the commercial community or in a larger community to define those hard processes around customer databases, both customer insight and foresight, because not always do customers know what they don't know, as I keep saying. So both insight and foresight, and metrics that will move the needle forward. And then there's a kind of a do loop which tracks, traces digital customer decision-making journeys, but tracks and traces this till it becomes operational excellence.
With all the companies who say they're customer-centric, when you look at what they measure, all their KPIs are company-centric. In fact, things like growth, sales, revenue, those actually show how customers are performing for the company. But a truly customer-centric company and culture looks at how the company is performing for its customers. So one of the methods that I created about 18 months ago, and we've started to see a number of companies start to embrace them, is the notion of customer performance indicators, or CPIs, which are the outcomes important to customers. And by understanding those outcomes, what Dan said earlier, understanding what are their intents at different points along their journey, can we measure the extent to which they achieve that intent, that we enable that intent? And by measuring the outcomes important to customers, it actually leads to better outcomes for the business. And the business outperforms on its KPIs by focusing foremost on its CPIs.
If you are able to walk in the customer's shoes, trust me, the product is only therefore then only becomes an enabler because you're able to identify joint outcomes out there that you want to solve for. Circularity as a case, an example in the chemical industry. Emissions as another case that you want to solve for. And against those, I'd just love to see the reverse of somebody arguing that there is no benefit, that the product is the only thing that solves for. I mean, some of those problems ain't going to be solved by just the product itself. So, not only am I a firm believer, as you can make out, I also think that the proof of the pudding is already there. It's up to us to structure it, document it, and make it easily digestible and available.
It's just intuitive, right? That if you get a better customer experience, you want to spend more of your current money, more of your current dollar with a supplier, and more of your future dollar as well. I think, the sort of, and we see that every day in our behaviors as consumers in our private lives. I don't think it's any different. Just to Gene's point that he made earlier, is that in the end, people buy from people. Everything else is just designed to help that. The rational answer would be actually to look at the data, first of all, in the B2C world. I think it's fairly well established that you can correlate directly improved customer experience with improved financial outcomes. Now, there's not so much data published in the B2B world, so we can't assume that that's the case. But I know specifically for our own experience in Dow, we've done a huge amount of data analytics across the programs of work. And I can state clearly that there is an obvious and direct correlation between experiences that customers say they have with us being better or worse and financial outcomes we ultimately experience being better or worse.
I would just cap it off by saying that I think everyone recognizes that, our company's focus on our products is meant to solve a customer problem. And we're very good at that. The issue is everything surrounding the product is seen at either manufacturing the product, distributing the product, selling the product. And to the extent that we can look at that entire ecosystem as solving a customer's problem, that's the opportunity. And so if we just look at the impact that a focus on solving problems versus selling products has on growth, retention, share of spend, lifetime value, the outcomes from being more customer-centric are significant.